So what does being outside in the Tennessee cold weather have to do with a watch review? Well, nothing really. I just need the vitamin D. Hey, welcome back to the Humble Horologist. You are literally with me outside in the backyard, and it is a nice sunny day. It's a little cool out here in Tennessee, and we're expecting some snow somewhere in the state this evening. Probably not here, but hey, it is what it is. You get it sometimes, sometimes you don't. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're not here to talk about Tennessee. We're here to talk about a watch that, quite frankly, is too good for its own good, in my opinion, and that is a Seestern that I have on my wrist right now. That is an homage to a Doxa SUB 600T, and I will show you both of them here in just a second. But the question that I want to ask is this: how good should an homage be until it gets to the point where it's just a flat-out copy? That's a good question, I think. Other than just the name on this one, I believe it's probably getting close to being too good. So just a few years ago, Doxa came out with the Sub 600T Pacific, which was essentially a reissue of a watch that was popular back in the 1980s. Now this is a limited edition, and it was made in titanium, and so that's not what this watch, the Seestern, is an homage to. It's this collection. The Carribean in the middle specifically is the one that I have. The Carribean, called the Sub 600T Carribean, is stainless steel, not titanium, and it has a date window. You'll see here that it is stainless steel, diameter 40 millimeter, height 14.15, so on and so forth. And the dimensions are exactly or nearly exactly what they are on the Seestern. And so when that came out, here you have one, the Seestern, that is just almost a dead ringer duplicate for what you have in the Doxa. As you see side by side, the Doxa on the left, the Seestern on the right, is almost impossible to tell the difference at first glance. When I first received this watch, it came in the typical black case that so many watches from AliExpress come in, Addie's Dive, and others. And so my first thought was, well, this is not going to be a very good situation because it's going to be a cheap watch, including when you look at the sticker, was not placed on there exactly correctly. And so when you open it up, there are a little bit of hints that things are going to get a little bit better because the card, even though not signed, is a nice card, the guarantee card. The booklet is a very nice little booklet. If you notice on the cover, though, it says Suggest, and if you look in the card itself, it says, "Thank you for choosing and joining the Suggest Watch Group." So Suggest, whatever. That evidently is the parent company, and we know that they make good watches. So my first thought, before even seeing the watch, it was going to be better than maybe the box led me to believe. But then when I took it out of the box, I was very impressed with the way this looked, and I still am. My first impressions of this watch were that it was weighty. It weighs about 176 grams. Is that right? Milligrams? Yeah. And the look is crisp. The orange minute hand just stands out. It pops and matches with the numbers on the outside of the bezel, which are in feet, not minutes. So that is for obviously a real diving feature having to do with decompression. So my first thoughts on this was that it might have been a cheap watch, but once I opened it, I thought, there's a lot of hope here. This is a very nice watch. And at that moment, I really didn't even know what a Doxa SUB 600T was. So I did not even know what this was an homage to. It's only afterwards that I began to run the numbers and look at the internet to find out what this actually was. Okay, let's look at some facts and figures regarding this piece. First off, what you see is pretty much a absolute replica of the Doxa SUB 600T. Now, not the limited edition one, but the one that you can buy now for around $1,590. Almost $1,600. Now, this one you could buy for less than $200, sometimes maybe around $120, $130, but between the $150 and $200 range on AliExpress or at the Seestern or Sugas website. The original watch that this is an homage to has a 40mm case, as we mentioned, and so does this. The lug-to-lug is exactly the same, 47.6 to 47.5, the best that my caliper will tell. Now the thickness is different. The Doxa is actually just a little bit thicker. It comes in, according to the website, at 14.5 millimeters, but the height on this is 13.5 millimeter. And I've measured it multiple times to see if I'm wrong, but that's the measurement that I come up with. The lug-to-lug, the lug width is just like the original. It is 20 millimeter, and it tapers down to a nice 18 millimeter at the clasp. Clasp is milled and it is signed. The crown is a signed crown, and it is at the 4 o'clock position, just like the Doxa. It is a push in, tighten to secure. When I undo it, and I'm not going to do it right now, but when I undo it, it will pop out. And it's easy, it's turned, it's very good. I mean, the movement inside is the NH35 Seiko, so it's a standard type of feel. But to push it back in, I will say it is a pain. Push this back in with as thin as the crown is, narrow the grippy part. It's hard to get pushed in, to hold, and then to turn. But once it gets in, it's secure and tight. Now, one of the things about this that I can't tell is the back, the case back. This is a screw down case back, which is very nicely done, engraved. But the original has a 2-piece screw down case back. This, the best that I can tell, is just one piece. I don't see how it can be more than that. And that's probably where some of the difference in the height of the watch, the height of the case, the thickness, comes into play. We do have a date at the 3 o'clock, just like the original. The date is loomed, as you will see in the loom shots that we have in a minute. And this one is rated at 200 meters of water resistance, while the SUB 600 Doxa is rated for 600 meters, which is a whole lot more. Now, the Pacifica, or the Pacific SUB 600T, which is the limited edition, has no date, but the Carribean, or Carribean, however you want to pronounce it, does have a date. So that is obviously the one that this is paying homage to. Now, one thing about this that is so scary and how close that they have copied the original one, not only in the dimensions and in the lines, the brushing, the finishing. But if you look closely at the bezel, the knurling on the outside, it is so that when you grip it, it is angled to the right this way so that it gives a better grip when you turn it, since it is a singular directional bezel. And you would think that that would be one of the places that might have gotten overlooked, but it wasn't. So kudos to Seestern. The dial is, other than the name Seestern and automatic 200 meter, 600 feet, is exactly the same. The dial and the bezel of this particular model is exactly the same as the Doxa. One reviewer looked at the hands and noticed that in the piece that he had, the loom was painted on and it was a little off. But the best that I can tell, the loom is painted on correctly. And even down to the second hand, where it is not a square, it is a rectangle. That is just like the Doxa itself. Down to the line around the date window, everything is spot on. There's going to be some minor differences, but to the naked eye, you're not going to tell them. So, solid end links, very nice articulation on the bracelet, and it is definitely well worth the money that you pay for this, and I highly recommend it from a spec point. All right, so final impressions, my final thoughts on this. I say this is a watch that you will be happy with. However, if you are concerned about having a watch that is an almost near replica of the original that it is copying, then this is a watch that will give you grief. If you want to buy a watch that is original, all its own design, this is not one for you. This, if the name was changed on the dial, you might be accused of wearing a copy. It is that close in most respects. Now, I'm just an amateur, but those are just my thoughts. And however, I know what it is, and I'm happy with it, and I'm going to wear it because I think it's a gorgeous watch. And quite frankly, I'm not really willing to spend, $1,600 on one like this, when this one can do pretty much everything that I'm going to never ever need. I'm never going to go over 200 meters in the water or less. I'm never going to go over 10 feet deep, to be quite honest. So this will suit me just fine. I'm never going to need the professional quality diver. So if you're looking for a good one that's vintage of a Doxa and you don't want to spend a lot of money, this is an excellent watch to invest in. I highly recommend it. Hey, thanks for watching, because, hey, the more you watch, the more you like, the more you subscribe. Well, you can't subscribe more than once, but more of you that subscribe, the closer we're going to be to that 1,000 mark. And let me guarantee you, there are going to be some things that I'm giving away that are going to be priceless, because you won't get them anywhere else but here. And so we need 1,000 subscribers to get to that point. I don't know if I can tell you what it is up front right now, but you're going to think it's pretty darn cool. So share this channel, like the video, and keep coming back until we hit that 1,000, and then we grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And you never know where we're going to go. We might even have dinner with Teddy Baldassar one day. he's could be unbelievable. Mr. Wonderful will show up, and we'll go get on a plane, and we'll go look at expensive watches, and you just never know. You just never know how this could end.